The European Union, meanwhile, is moving to impose sanctions. They will target top Ukrainian officials. The EU claims they are responsible for the violence. Visa bans and asset freezes could be approved quickly, says the regional bloc. The United States says it is also fast-tracking financial sanctions. CCTV's Nathan King is here with more on all of this. Nathan?
Yeah, very fast-moving situation, Mike. But remember that embarrassing leaked phone call between a U.S. State Department official and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, which caused an expletive to describe European inaction over the Ukraine? Well, it caused divisions between the Europeans and the U.S. Well, now it very much looks like Washington and Brussels are moving in the same direction over Ukrainian sanctions.
3 European foreign ministers in Kiev calling for an end to the violence as the death toll mounts. 2,000 kilometers away in Brussels, the EU moves swiftly announcing potential sanctions against key members of the Ukrainian government.
But in the light of the deteriorating situation, we decided as a matter of urgency we needed to look at targeted sanctions. We've agreed to suspend export licenses for equipment for internal repression.
Sanctions targeted against those deemed responsible for the violence could include asset freezes and travel bans. Meanwhile, the EU is moving to curb the export of equipment that could be used against protesters. Russia reacted by saying sanctions were tantamount to blackmail and would only embolden the opposition.
America has already imposed sanctions in regards to some of the Ukrainian government representatives. In this way, they are creating additional stimuli for the opposition not to compromise, and indirectly, if not directly, urging protesters to continue the lawlessness and chaos.
And in his first public comment since the recent upsurge of violence, the United Nations Secretary General called for an end to the bloodshed.
I continue to strongly appeal to all involved to cease the violence and for the Ukrainian authorities to refrain from excessive use of force. I'm appalled by the use of firearms by both the police and protesters.
Sanctions could backfire and make life more difficult for the Europeans and the US by further alienating the Ukrainian government and making it more receptive to Russia. So there's a lot at stake here, especially for the Europeans, Mike. Two-way trade between Ukraine and the EU topped $38 billion last year. The US just $3 billion. The Europeans, meanwhile, are offering a carrot to Ukraine, basically saying that they will implement the scale of sanctions depending on what happens to the ground over the next few days.
And we know these 3 EU foreign ministers still on the ground there in Kiev, still trying to broker a deal. What are the chances of that?
Yeah, of course, this is Poland, the neighbor of Ukraine, and also France and Germany, the 2 heavyweights at the European Union. They are having basically midnight discussions, not with just the President Yanukovych, but also the opposition as well. Now, the plan on the table is to have some sort of interim government of technocrats, no necessarily politicians involved, and early elections to take the steam out of the face-off that we've seen about taking Ukraine in these 2 very different directions.
All right, Nathan, thanks so much for that update.